Warning: what you're about to hear may contain mature language, adult situations, and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Trash Heap. We're here with another episode. Joining me as always is Keith Vance.
Hello.
And we have a guest host today, Francis Greet.
The creator of the first returns to participate in the last.
Wait, what?
No, that's not true. That's the tagline from Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh, cool.
The final Friday. But that's not really what's happening. This is not the last episode.
We'll see.
Francis, how are you doing today?
Good.
You might remember Francis from some of our previous episodes. She was on our Guyver episode as well as our Ghost of Mars episode.
She was also an extra in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
That's true.
She played the gun.
Yes, that was me. Thank you for the recognition.
Spent most of the movie in a purse, but now she's out.
She's out.
It's just like real life.
So we got a kind of a special episode, I guess, today.
It is the 1 year anniversary of
1
the
year.
Trash Heap. We've been doing this podcast for a whole year.
And for that whole year, we've had a total of one listener. So perfect. You know?
I think that was me.
So maybe this
I
year...
just listened back to one of the episodes.
I didn't listen to any of them. So maybe this year we can get two.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
That's the goal. When we started this show, the whole point was to embrace and celebrate these movies that we enjoyed as kids growing up watching on like Sunday afternoon television. Movies that may have been creatively bankrupt or financially bankrupt or completely inadequate technically and had never had a chance at winning over the masses. But they won us over because
For
they had...
some reason or another, you know.
Yeah, there was something special about them, like a special kind of energy, and they stuck with us through our later years. Or maybe they're a new big budget type of movie that kind of missed the mark, but...
Still has some sort of merit that at least one of us
Yeah,
can
exactly.
find something in, you know. Yeah, I guess that's... You know, there's all types of things, and there's obviously movies that are outwardly, like, awesome, you know. That, like, anyone can say, like, yeah, that's great. But there's something that... I think we've kind of said this before. There's definitely something to be said for a movie that maybe is flawed, is poorly made in a lot of respects, but for some reason is still compelling. And I think that's a really interesting thing. And yeah, that's kind of what this has been about, you know, is like giving some of those movies that have been thrown away a second chance.
Yeah, creative works that may have been resigned to the garbage, but we're going to fish them out and dust them off and make sure they get the love that they deserve. And probably crack a few jokes at their expense, too.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think, Francis?
Yep.
You were here when we started. What do you think of our journey so far?
Pretty good. Hopefully maybe next year you'll have more episodes, if I'm going to be honest.
Hey, we're busy guys. No,
okay.
we're not. We got to spend time watching the movies before we can talk about the movies.
True, yeah.
So today we're going to do... Or I guess we're actually going to do something a little bit different today than we have in the past.
It seems like every new episode is a little bit different now.
That's true, but I think...
We're all gimmicks, baby. It's that time to check in with Elliot to see how many days it's been since he has not seen Alien Covenant.
134.
Wow. Stay tuned next time as we check in with Elliot to see how many days it's been since he hasn't seen Alien Covenant.
It's different because normally we do movies that nobody likes or just a select few movies that people like, and now we're going to talk about some movie that just came out that's kind of been a big hit.
Yeah, probably has a good aggregated score on that Rotten Tomatoes.
Last I looked, I think it was like 89 or something.
Wow.
So we're
Sure is a lot of tomatoes.
We're gonna talk about the new It adaptation, and we're gonna talk about it in reference to the miniseries from the 90s. And Francis is the only one here who's actually read the book, so that'll be helpful as well for some comparing and contrasting. But before we do that, normally we would do knee-jerk reactions, where we talk about some stupid trailer we saw and our knee-jerk reaction to it. But I think today we're going to talk about some of our favorite and least favorite Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah, the best of the best and the worst of the worst.
Keith, why don't you kick it off?
I am going to kick it off. Man, Stephen King is such a prolific writer and a raging alcoholic.
Yeah.
And
Okay, he used to be.
sure,
Not
sure,
anymore.
sure. I'm talking about overall. Like if you
It's
add
still
up
part of him.
the percentage of his life that he spent drunk or blasted out of his mind on cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that era of Stephen King is probably my favorite. Like, I think he
All
put
the
out
batshit crazy.
his most exciting and aggressive works, which makes sense when your pulse is racing at about 300 beats per
Like
minute.
how many books does he say doesn't even remember writing or something?
Yeah. So my first favorite, let's start with my faves, and then we'll talk about the real downers. But my first favorite Stephen King adaptation is 1000% the one that the man himself is responsible for, and that is Maximum Overdrive.
I knew you were going to say that.
Maximum Overdrive is not something that should be taken lightly, because from minute one of this movie, it is like the kind of roller coaster, like madcap energy thrill ride that most movies promise but can't deliver on. And someone was actually blinded on the set during a stunt
So
gone
there was
wrong.
genuine terror.
It's got street credentials,
Is that-
as the children say.
Is that the one with semi trucks?
Yes.
But it is not trucks.
Oh, it's like
Don't get
they're
it
like,
twisted.
They're like possessed semis.
Well, no, there's another movie called Trucks.
Yeah,
Oh.
Maximum Overdrive has other vehicles and other mechanical things
Ah,
involved.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not limited to just trucks. The movie Trucks is
Is limited to
Yeah,
trucks,
that's the
The same premise, but
right.
just trucks.
Stephen King just he had a lot to say on the subject of vehicles coming to life, so he's just working it out.
Was
The-
that the one that he just made into a movie and there's no book from it, or there's a book?
There's a short story.
Yeah, Maximum Overdrive is like a 4-page short story.
4-page short story. It's the only movie that Stephen King has directed himself.
Yes.
He wrote this
that's what it
teleplay,
is.
directed himself. I will say that the best thing about Maximum Overdrive is the trailer for Maximum
Oh,
Overdrive
100%.
with Stephen King, where he's like, "I got tired of people messing up my books, so I decided to do it myself."
Yeah, if you can't, what does he say exactly? It's if you want something done right, why you ought to do it yourself.
And then he just
He
stares
sure
at
as
the
hell did
camera
it.
for like 30 seconds and goes, "I'm gonna scare the hell out of you."
Yeah.
And that is literally the scariest thing in any
Just him saying that.
Yeah.
any Stephen King adaptation ever put to celluloid. That is the most terrifying thing, is the manic pervert old man look he
Yeah.
gives into the camera.
Well, then his subsequent thought was, what's the scariest soundtrack I can think of? Let's call AC/DC.
He's like, it's gonna be scary how bad it is.
Yeah, it's gonna rock.
So that's your number one.
Yeah, that's golden era Emilio Estevez also.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, just what
I
a
mean, did that era end?
what a talent. It did. It did. He got real serious and got into directing, and I don't want to talk about it. Next on my list of favorite Stephen King adaptations is Graveyard Shift.
Oh, man.
Graveyard Shift is the story of some factory workers in the the seedy small town who run across. They're in I think it's a cotton mill,
Yeah, I think it is.
and they run across a giant bat living in caverns underneath.
It's not a bat though. It's like a weird rat dog winged creature.
Wait, isn't
it's,
that a bat?
it's bat-esque, but if you look
It doesn't fly, but it's got bat style wings.
Sure, yeah. It scurries
It's
across
too
the ceiling.
fat to fly though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll also say about Graveyard Shift. Graveyard Shift, if it's a movie you're watching out of the corner of your eye, like if you have it on in the background, or if you were doing something else and what you were watching ended and it started, you will constantly keep looking over. But the second you stop doing what you're doing and actually start watching it, you'll be bored to tears.
Yeah, it grinds to a halt. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting that way. But my favorite things about the movie have got to be the absolutely savage performance by Stephen Macht. He is just like chewing his way through this entire movie, like with like a
Teeth.
set of fake teeth that like can't be stopped. He's incredible. Everyone is covered in this permanent sheen of sweat, and the giant bat creature effects are disgusting and amazing.
Nice.
So this is a like sleazy,
The effects are
gross,
fun. I agree with that.
weird movie that kind of is a little boring, but it's still one of my favorites. And then
Let me guess. It's The Mangler.
no, not at all. That's the killer
Washing machine.
Washing machine. Wow.
That kills virgins.
Only
And you,
virgin.
and you defeat it by throwing a Bible into the washing machine. Or it's a laundry press at the end.
Wow. Is Stephen King responsible for arachnophobia?
I don't think so. But I don't think so. He's not.
Hmm.
But you can run with it.
I'm gonna go with that one anyway, just because I love spiders.
Yeah.
I love John Goodman, and that probably has one of the coolest ending like kill scenes I've ever seen, like the slow motion flaming nail to the giant spider.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Kills, not only does it kill the spider, but it goes right into the nest and burns the nest
Yeah.
and the entire house with it.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
you
is
gotta,
incredible.
sacrifices have to be made.
Yeah, and if arachnophobia is not a Stephen King story, then I'll just go with Pet Sematary 2,
Fair enough.
which is
It's
good
also-
for the same reasons.
Wait a minute. Pet Sematary 2 is also not a Stephen King story.
Well,
Pet Sematary is, but
that's
then
arguable.
I mean, it's based off Stephen King characters.
It's just based off the notes and like rough draft ideas
He's
from
involved. Okay.
the original Pet Sematary,
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
or so I've heard.
Your least favorite?
That's easy. I'm just gonna run through this without even any justification, and go in order. The worst Stephen King adaptations are The Running Man, The Shawshank Redemption, and Children of the Corn.
Interesting. Interesting choices.
Tell your friends.
Francis?
Yeah, Francis, let's hear from you. What?
Favorites.
Favorites. Yeah, start favorites.
So, well, I mean, there's two that jump to mind. They're probably tied for first, but I'll go with the one I saw first. The Shining was the first Stephen King adaptation I'd ever seen. I was living at my aunt's house in Puyallup, like on a road that wasn't really surrounded by anything, so it was like 4 acres of farmland. I was upstairs in this farmhouse and it was on TV. I watched it for the first time by myself, like darkness outside, and I wasn't scared, but I was enthralled the entire time. And I usually get really scared easily by movies, but this was just more interesting and kind of fun than scary. So that would probably start at the top of the list, and then second, I have to say Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Because I love coming of age stories, and it's one of the only movies I've seen that's coming of age about a group of friends who are true friends. There's nothing petty, there's nothing like holding them back from each other. It's just they're all in it together and they're, going on this journey together. And I just like that it's not bogged down by, love interests or being jealous of each other. It's just true young friendship. And it's pretty apparent that that's an important theme that runs through a lot of Stephen King's writing. And I read the short story, and I've watched the movie, and they're pretty similar to each other. And I think that the adaptation onto film was amazing. Third, I might have to. I was thinking Misery. Because again, I saw that when I was younger, and it's just kind of stuck with me. It's terrifying in the way that is real life terrifying. The someone holding you captive, but like being oddly sweet about it. So it's like you don't see it coming, and then once you're in it, and you can't get out.
Yeah,
and
it's that casual possessiveness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where have I seen that before?
Your mom.
Zing!
Yeah. So those. Oh, and then
Bottom 3.
bottom 3. Okay. This is hard, but I'd have to say Desperation, definitely, because when I watched it, I was so angry.
Oh, with Antonio Banderas? Man. It's garbage.
No, wait, am I saying the right?
No, it is desperate. He's making
And it's the sequel, Once Upon a Time in
Okay.
Derry.
He's taking other movies like Desperado that sound vaguely similar to
Ah.
Desperation.
I mean, close. It has
It's a real comedian over here.
But But it had the same thing that you were talking about with that other movie. Like, everyone just has this, like, glow of sweat the whole time. They're
Yeah.
in the desert, but still it's, like...
Disgusting to watch.
They look like they stink, that they've never taken showers. The acting is so bad.
They
There's
look like slugs almost.
And there's, like, some, like, Christian element to it, and it's just so bad. It's so bad. You just want to jump in there and, like, cut everybody's head off.
Yeah, it's kind of a watered down version of The Stand almost, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, see, that's what I was going to bring up next. While I don't... I love to hate The Stand. I watched it, I think, in one day by myself.
Wow.
Maybe 2 days.
And it's like
It was
6. It's
2
like
days.
6 hours long.
It was 2 days. 2 days next to each other. It felt like one day. And it's not good. It's not good. It's really bad. But it's fascinating and exciting at the same time. Like, I think I was so invested in the characters because I just wanted to see if they all died.
Well, so that's The Stand was directed. The miniseries was directed by Mick Garris, who's done a lot of King adaptations, and he also did the TV movie version of the Shining. And I kind of feel the same way about The Shining. It's terrible, but I can't take my eyes off of it. You know, it's
and
like
it's got that 90s glow on it.
yeah.
That's just like,
Yeah.
you feel like you're, you know,
it's like
coming
watching
down from something.
It's like watching an accident in slow motion. You know.
Yeah.
But an accident full of people that you just, like, don't like.
Yeah.
And while those techniques and style moves may have worked on Sleepwalkers, that doesn't necessarily translate to other projects, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sleepwalkers is the best.
I will
Is that
back,
one
I'll-
with the cats?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll back.
Oh, yeah.
See,
I will
I've
back
only seen a few
Sleepwalkers.
scenes of that, but it was pretty entertaining.
That's Mick Garris's first King adaptation.
You can be
That's what started their wonderful relationship.
he knocked it out of the park. You can love cats or you can hate cats, and this movie's got it all for you.
That's true.
I can't think of a third one that I don't care for.
Well, it's okay.
I mean, there's so many.
There are so many, but I feel like I've also kind of stuck to watching the, like, big budget ones. Just that's how it's gone. Elliot's shown me a few of the ones that have been swept under the rug, but
What about the Dead Zone? Nobody's mentioned the Dead
I was
Zone.
going to say the Dead
Yeah.
Zone.
Oh,
I was
spoiler
gonna,
alert
I was
for
going to be on my
Elliot's
list.
well, it's a good segue.
All right, so getting onto my list. So I'll say when I think of Stephen King adaptations, I kind of put them into two categories. One that have like a horror, thriller, science fiction, or supernatural element, and then his more like grounded in reality ones, or that aren't necessarily horror specific, like Shawshank Redemption or Stand By Me. So I'm going to stick for this list. I'm going to stick just to the ones that fall into the more horror driven or fantasy driven adaptation. So I was
So like Willow.
Willow,
Stephen King presents Willow.
Beastmaster.
Oh yeah. Mark Singer starring in Stephen King's
So yes,
Beastmaster.
I was gonna say Dead Zone. Dead Zone, I think, is the first Stephen King adaptation I saw. At least the only one where I was aware that I was watching a Stephen King book into a movie. I think I probably saw Stand By Me first, but I didn't know that it had anything to do with Stephen King, or even maybe didn't even know who Stephen King was at the time I saw that. I was very, very little when I saw that. I was pretty young when I saw Dead Zone too. Dead Zone, that's a David Cronenberg, one of his first like forays into mainstream cinema.
Yeah, it's pretty tame
And-
as far as his film library is concerned.
And I think while that one's kind of like it's well regarded as being one of the better Stephen King adaptations, even though like if it's regarded as that, it doesn't really get a lot of love, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of mild in terms of like energy and style. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing really like wild happening
Which is one of
into
the
it.
kind of cool things about it. It's kind of a slow burn for a Stephen King, you know? It's like it's not I mean, I haven't read the novel, but just in terms of the film, it's pretty unique in his repertoire, and I've always just been really captivated by it. Another one that I put on my list.
Well, let me before
Yeah.
you skip ahead. Do you think it would have been as effective if someone else was in the lead? Like 'cause
other than Christopher Walken.
yeah, Christopher Walken's kind of a unique, like magnetic kind of guy.
Yeah, but also this is all
and a straight up weirdo.
in terms of, like we're just talking about in terms of being this kind of a milder Stephen King horror story or fantasy story, is also a more subdued performance that Christopher Walken normally gives. He's not freaking out as much as he. I mean, there are moments, you know, but
Like when he's on fire in bed.
right for the great portion of the time, it's a very like internalized performance, and it's kind of unique for him too.
Yeah, you might say he's sleepwalking.
Whoa.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, but anyway, moving along. Another one. I'm putting it on this list because this is one like I said, I just said Dead Zone's a little underrated. This is one I think is criminally underrated. Maybe it's not the best, but I was like, this one deserved way more attention and praise than it got, and that would be Apt Pupil.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's a good
Apt
one.
Pupil is fantastic. It's uncomfortable. It's I don't want to say sleazy, but it's
No,
just
that's
like
my catchphrase.
right. But it just makes you like gets really crawls
And
under your
there's like
skin.
no one that you can't root for and you can't hate the main characters at the same time.
You know,
like they're both evil, but you're like, who do I pick?
If anyone, you sympathize more for the Nazi,
True.
than you do for
Which is disgusting.
And like there's like Ian McKellen plays this horrible like Nazi war criminal in hiding, who like a little kid figures out who he is and starts
it
tormenting
takes
him.
place in like the 80s, like the 90s or
Yeah, 80s or 90s or something.
So
like,
it's like
well, I think the novella it's based on was the 80s, and the movie was
90s.
And
Devin
yeah.
Sawa.
no, that's not. That's Brad Renfro.
No,
Damn,
yeah,
what was
Renfro.
Close. But yeah, it's. I think it's a great thriller. It's uncomfortable. I might watch it later tonight. And it's Bryan Singer's best film, hands down.
Oh yeah.
It's better than Usual Suspect, and he hasn't made that many other good movies. It's better than Usual Suspects.
Okay, that's a whole other conversation. I don't even know how I'd fall on that, but
Well,
big
Usual
conversation.
Suspects has sort of lost some juice with
Yeah, I guess
age.
you can
Yeah.
only watch it once too.
Yeah.
It's such a twist.
And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why.
Tell anybody.
Guess what, guys?
No!
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze.
That's fucked up.
I mean, technically, no one is Kaiser Soze.
True.
Yeah.
And then for my third pick, this is just what I'm putting on here because it's a more recent one that I just really enjoyed and thought was a lot of fun, which was 11/22/63.
Oh no.
I know you didn't care for it. I thought it was great. I love Kennedy assassination stuff. So this weird time travel story was a lot of fun. Is it one of the best Stephen King adaptations? No, but I'm saying for, I was when I was trying to think of this list, I was actually going over movies and I was like, man, most of these are pretty bad. There's only like really a couple handfuls of good ones. And this one was totally enjoyable and kept moving throughout like the 11 or 12 episodes
Ooh.
that there was of it, so I got a kick out of it.
Some people.
There's definitely Stephen King movies I think are better. I think The Shining's better, even though it's on your list of bottom ones.
I don't think I put it on my list.
Didn't. Oh, wait a minute.
I
Yeah,
hate
it's
The
so
Shining
bottom.
though.
You do hate The
It's
Shining.
a real snoozer.
It's too artsy for you.
Yeah.
It's like going into a library and all the books are in Latin.
Yeah.
Who reads Latin?
That's not boring. That's just really confusing.
All right. So anyway, on my list of least favorite Stephen King adaptations, and I will say I haven't seen a handful of the ones that are regarded as being really, really bad, like The Night Flyer.
Yeah, or Under the Dome. Didn't they adapt that into
Yeah,
a
it's a
TV
TV
show?
show, not a movie.
And then what about Cell?
Cell was supposed to be pretty bad. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I didn't either. It looked pretty awful.
I didn't see like Thinner or something like a handful of the ones that everyone was like, these are the worst.
I mean, Thinner at least has some cool makeup effects.
is it the same makeup effects that are in the trailer? Because those are bad,
Oh,
like real
easy
bad,
guy.
real bad. Okay, but anyway, my picks are first up Langoliers.
Oh yeah.
So fucking bad. I remember watching this on. Actually, I vaguely remember watching it on TV when it was a miniseries because it was so. That's how bad it was. The only thing I can really remember is at the end, Bronson Pinchot getting eaten by a giant metallic meatball with teeth that flew through the air.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He does get eaten, right? That's
yeah, the
something-
meatball effects were bad even by like the early '90s standard
Oh,
or
yeah.
whenever it came out.
And they
Yeah.
were supposed to be meatballs.
No, they're supposed to be the Langoliers, which are these weird interdimensional beings or something. I don't really fucking know.
They're like meatballs with like 3 mouths almost, and they what they do is they devour the past.
Yeah. So that's which actually sounds kind of cool, but it's not.
Yeah,
That doesn't
conceptually.
really even
Yeah.
sound cool.
It's about here's what's cool. So it's about these people on an airplane. Don't most of the people on the airplane disappear or something? Or,
Yeah.
Or no, they
I
all lose their
remember
memory.
this.
They don't disappear. They all lose their memory.
It's sort of like a temporal displacement kind of story
Yeah.
where they're
Okay.
trapped in limbo,
Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of is like an extended Twilight.
but it
episode.
goes on for 12 hours.
Yeah, and it should be cool, but it
Oh,
is.
it's a TV show.
It was a miniseries. I think it was
Yeah,
like
okay.
it was like 2 or 3 parter or something, and it should be cool, but it's not cool at all. So that'd be my first pick. After that, I'd go with Cujo. Cujo is not necessarily a technically bad made movie. I mean, like, it's competently made. Production value's there. There's cameras that work and lighting and stuff.
It's certainly a movie. Yeah.
But it is so goddamn boring. I didn't even get to the part where she's like trapped in the car. I shut the movie off before that because 45 minutes into the movie.
That's the movie, though. Like, that's
the first that's like the second half. The first half is absolutely nothing that has anything to do with anything, and you don't care, and it's boring as fuck. I couldn't get through it. So that'd be my number 2.
Well, talk about also the absolutely criminal miscasting of that dog.
Elaborate.
It's your opinion. I'm trying to get you to touch on it.
No, the dog.
You had this controversial opinion regarding the casting of the dog, and I just want everyone else to hear about it.
Oh.
Because... No.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
No.
Well,
I
who said that?
I have no opinion on the casting of the dog. Keith is wearing clown makeup right now, and it's really difficult. I'm not joking. He's wearing clown makeup. It's really difficult for me to look at him.
I keep forgetting what I look like, but I didn't. I just said that as like an improv moment to see what you would do with it, and you guys.
I thought you had something.
Buckled under the pressure.
I thought you had something to say about the casting of the dog, and I was waiting for you.
No.
Anyway.
The dog casting is perfect.
I feel like it'll be fun to edit that part out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so moving along, my third choice would be Needful Things, which is another one that possibly has some competent people behind in front of the camera, but is just...
Who's in that?
Ed Harris, Max von Sydow playing the devil.
Great cast so far.
There's some other people in it too. I don't recall off the top of my head. It should be good. It's been spoofed numerous times. You know, it's about the devil who opens up an antique store, and every time you buy an item, you sell your soul or something. Rick and Morty did a great episode about it. Max von Sydow as the devil sounds fantastic, but it is also just so painfully boring that I could only get through about 15 minutes of it before I was like, I don't care what happens after here. It could be amazing. I'm just...
When was that made?
Like 93, 94.
Would you say that the 90s of Stephen King were not the best?
I would say that the 90s were not the best in general.
Well, yeah, but...
I thought it was an exciting time, at least, because a lot of the most interesting Stephen King adaptations came out during that time. Like, the 80s was obviously good. You had Pet Cemetery and Children of the Corn and all that kind of stuff.
Wait, I thought you just said Children of the Corn was one of your least favorite.
Yeah, but a lot of people like it.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell them what to think or feel or try to, reset history. But that was definitely one of the more successful and more revered Stephen King adaptations. But the 90s was a wild time. And
if you say so.
I'll never forget it. I know you don't like it.
Another good honorable mention is Christine.
Christine's great. Christine's...
I think kind of the plot of it isn't super scary. Like,
not at all.
A possessed car. But when, like, in the movie, you totally get the feeling that the car is in love with the owner, and it's, like, more ownership of the human. And like, love and jealousy, and it does get kind of scary.
Well, in the story of Arnie, the main character, and how his personality changes as
he's possessed too in a way.
Yeah, he gets to know this car and is in like a destructive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also something that's kind of interesting is like once again I have not read the book, but I have heard that in the book when Arnie's driving around, at least one or two, or maybe more of the previous owners, their ghosts sit in the back seat, and they're like always talking to Arnie and influencing him as well. So it's like Christine never lets these people go, even after they're dead, So it's like she's bringing them all into her fold.
Wow, the kind of relationships that have no closure at all.
Exactly,
man.
So that's a good call, adding Christine onto there, because that's another one that's a lot of fun. John Carpenter's foray into...
That's actually one of his better movies.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, that's our list of favorite and least favorite Stephen King adaptations, at least contextually.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about yours. If you guys are upset with what you've heard and you want to rail on us against our picks, or type in all caps about how The Mist is the greatest Stephen King adaptation of all time, let's hear it.
Would love to hear it. So let's get into it then. We're going to talk about It, the new It. You saw it.
Yeah, Stephen King presents It, a story by Stephen King.
Yeah. Francis and I, we saw it together. We saw it twice together,
Wow.
actually.
Had to.
We saw it the next day we didn't see it, and we saw it the day after that. So I really enjoyed it. I'm going to compare now. I'll say too, the original holds a very special place.
Yeah.
For
We're
me.
not here to compare it to
Well,
the original.
No,
though.
I think we are though.
This
To a
is
certain-
something
to a
fresh
certain-
and new and exciting, and I think
to
it
a certain-
deserves a fair shake.
It does, but to a certain degree, it's impossible to not with the
It
same.
is. It's hard. That's why we had to. That's why I had to see it twice, because I went into it like super critically from reading the book and really loving the miniseries. But then the second time I had to see it with a new lens of like, I'm not comparing it. I'm just watching it for what it is. But it was still really hard to let go of, what I had read and seen previously.
I think it was easy for me to let go of the original miniseries for the most part. However, there was what's unique.
Well, everybody just calm down, because let's not forget that the original miniseries, quote unquote, it was a TV movie.
Yeah.
It's not even presented in widescreen.
That's true.
Does that mean it's not?
It means it's not a real movie.
But
It's a glorified sitcom.
okay. So who cares? It's
Yeah.
something that happened and it was on the
I,
screen.
I'd
and we
argue that
watched
it didn't. Technically, it didn't happen.
Well, what I wanted to say though about it, and why it's in and of itself is important to me is I've always loved horror movies, but really didn't get scared by them. I mean, other than like I might be scared while I was watching them, something might jump out from in the corner.
But when it's done, it's done.
Done. Even as a kid, it didn't carry with me after the end of the movie.
Oh.
It was completely different to that, and I think there's a very specific reason why, and I think it's why the original works so well, and one of the reasons why the new one works so well as well is because I'm going to create another example about something else that scared me. I was scared about the legend of the Mothman when I was a little kid, that urban legend.
Here we go
Oh my
again.
gosh!
Because-
this is a whole conversation.
I'll keep it brief. But I was looking at through some kid's book about American monsters, saw that, got really scared for some reason. That one, whatever, struck a chord. And I knew the Mothman wasn't real, but I was still afraid of him. So I created a set of rules that would protect me from him. Like when I would go to sleep, the way I'd be safe from him when I was asleep is I decided that the Mothman was afraid to touch a human head and afraid to touch blankets. So as long as I slept with
safe.
slept with the blankets completely up to my neck, I would be fine. And it didn't matter if it was the dead of summer, I was sweating, whatever, but I was okay.
I did that same exact thing when I went to bed. The same exact thing, except I thought a witch was after me. I had to have my bed up against the wall, and if it was like an inch or a foot away, then she was going to slink through that crack and grab me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I slept with just my face showing through the covers, I was safe. Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
And you can't move either. You're just laying there with your face out, and you're safe.
Yeah, but so it was a thing where I created the fear and I created the solution to it, and that's what I think what's really interesting about it is, its power, the creature Pennywise, its power comes from people's fear. He can't feed
Right.
on you unless you are afraid, and he can't hurt you unless you believe in him. If you're not afraid of him, he can't. His power over you is harmless.
That's why all the adults are safe.
Right, or at least most of them are. If anyone has an inkling,
But it's also like they choose not to see it. Like
Right.
they've grown
Yeah,
up.
they've got bigger fish to fry.
Right.
But
They've
it-
got
but
jobs and
mortgages,
insurance.
yeah.
Yeah,
right,
bills
but
to
but he
pay.
has to, but he has to play off of your belief of him. If you don't,
Right.
if you're not afraid of him and you don't have a belief of him, he can't hurt you. And it was the same thing with my fear of Mothman. I knew Mothman wasn't real, but he was my fear of him turned my stomach. It kept me up at night. It caused a physical.
Holy moly!
It caused a physical reaction to me. It physically hurt me, and it was the same with
It's
it.
physically
Getting,
hurting
like,
me
really
listening to
into
this. But let's not dismiss the existence of the Mothman. I wouldn't say that the Mothman doesn't exist.
Oh my god.
There's still a
Shit,
question.
Don't start
Oh my
this.
God.
Don't start this.
Oh man.
You were
Elliot has
saying
to-
about this fictional clown?
Oh right, so I think that's why it struck such a chord with me and with other people too, and why it's endured so much is because it plays off of your individual fears more than anything else.
Right.
More than an external thing like here's a boogeyman that's inside of you.
Well, and
you know?
not to bring up the book, my apologies, but it's mentioned that it loves being like tormenting like earthlings because like it's the first time that it has experienced imagination. So then its form can take like it's just like, you know, the world is its oyster in a way. Like it can do anything and feed off of this imagination and this fear, and everything's so delicious because of imagination. And maybe that's why it's like mostly children, because there's a myth that adults don't have imagination when they grow
Okay,
up.
Stephen King, we get it.
Well,
It's
also-
about you. You're
Well, also-
a writer.
Also, too, and like in the history though, when they talk about the history of dairy and they talk about disasters and like it attacks before it did in the past.
Let me stop you
Yeah.
right there. Every time they say something about the history of dairy, did you think they were talking about like
Cheese.
milk and cheese
I
and
was.
sour cream?
And I was like, why did so many people
Yogurt.
die making cheese?
This is the Dairy Gold
Oh.
history.
But no, when they talk about it, the further they go into the past, the more adults it is responsible for killing. But it's also going back into a time when there was more superstition, more people believed in ghosts
That's a good
Right.
point.
and witches and werewolves and stuff. And the more that you get into the modern time, his prey becomes progressively younger and younger and younger. You know?
Yeah, as the age of nonsense faded, then
Yeah.
the age of reason.
he
took
became
dominance, and they're like, well-
he fell more into he became less powerful over
Yeah.
adults. Not that he had no power, but they were his victims far less. you
And
know?
now in the age of the internet, where people are into like Slender Man and online poker and
Pornography.
superstitious things like that, it's a resurgence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad this wasn't made in modern times. I mean, like.
Oh, you mean
just-
the time
Yeah,
setting?
'cause
I was like, it was made.
not
It was
to
literally made in
veer
this
off
past year.
course
Yeah.
with the new Ring movie is disgusting. You have to watch like a YouTube clip and then you die in 7 days. Fuck off. No.
Oh yeah, that's pretty lame.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've watched YouTube clips and almost died several times afterwards.
Well, there's something more fun and exciting. Like there's more of a sick thrill of like, oh, you get to pick the person you give this tape to because
Right.
you're essentially killing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, yeah.
Like now people mindlessly send
Like,
stupid links
it
and tag their
follows.
friends in videos and all kinds of bullshit.
Whenever I tag a friend in video, I'm trying to murder them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
It hasn't worked yet, but you know.
That's a weird thing to do.
So when
One
you
of- one of
tag,
these-
so when you tag Francis in like a recipe online for like fettuccine, you're like, well,
Oh, no,
this will be the one.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill her with cholesterol.
I'm dying from fettuccine overdose.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Oh, yeah.
not a secret. My
Eventually you'll get
addiction
heart
is
disease.
Public.
Yeah. Come on, Keith.
Anyway, sorry, I took it off course a little bit with
That's fine.
that, but talk about it.
It 2017.
Keith, what did you like about it?
This movie is about kids, which I love kids. They're so fascinating in their little habits and rituals, and they don't have anything to do. They don't have responsibilities. They have
Just-
nothing but free time. And so
Look for their dead brother.
in their little delusional minds, they can make up all sorts of terrifying things, like a cosmic clown that's going to eat every one of their friends. Imagine having that much space in your life. Like you have so little going on that you can make up this fantastical idea and even like go so far as to execute it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there is no clown. It's just
Interesting.
these sick little kids killing
You
all their
are
friends.
Just
I like the clown. Is the clown, guys. Francis, what did you like about it?
well, like I mentioned earlier, I was really worried about seeing it, because, you know, I didn't want to be too critical of it, and I love coming of age stories. It's might be, you know, definitely top 3 genres of movies if I had to pick anything, or books, anything. I just love them. I was really excited about the cast that they picked for the kids. It was just, I have nothing bad to say about the actors. I was really excited about that. But
If I may interject on that, the problem I had, and this is a minor gripe, but a lot of the kids just kind of look the same.
I've remember you saying this before.
Like, there's not a whole lot of visual distinction between a handful
did
of
you
the
have
kids.
a hard time separating them?
I mean,
They just looked like a bunch of little kids to me.
eventually their looks became much more distinct through some kind of transformations they went through. But a few of the kids were just like kind of the same, like slightly long hair, brunette, skinny kid. And
I feel like you just described what children generally look like.
And they all have
You know?
hair. That's
No.
true.
You
They're
should
like,
go
I
outside.
was like, I saw this little skinny kid with some hair.
Well-
you
Well,
know?
the other thing is, I mean, why don't we think about where this story takes place?
That's true.
It takes place
Yeah.
in Maine. It takes place in a small town in Maine, like on a river. It's not like a big city with a lot of different people. Like the story, like there's a lot of racism in the town too, where
Right.
this group of people are just like telling the one black family, like, you don't belong here, you have to get out, like, I wish I had killed your parents, I wish it was me, you
Right.
know, like, so, and it's not like they have these big fashions going through, like, I mean, it was the 80s, and even the teenage girls were just like looking like Tiffany, you know.
Right.
It wasn't.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah,
But
I hear you. I mean, it's 6 white kids.
Yeah.
One's a girl, and then there's one boy that's black. Like, that's,
yeah,
if
well,
they're
no,
gonna
even the
follow
girl,
script of it,
when the girl cuts
yeah.
her hair is similar to like 3 of the boys' haircuts.
that's true.
Which, you know, they could have been a little different.
Was-
But like I said, that's a minor gripe. I will say this though, my favorite like visually, like my favorite kid is
Cast,
Eddie.
yeah.
Yeah, with not just with the cast and being covered in goo by the end of the movie, but also his giant adult-sized man head.
What?
Like,
I thought he had a tiny head.
he looked like a grown, like he had the face and hair and just like the look of a grown man on a child's
but that's
body.
Perfect because that's the character.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it was executed so well. Like, here's this kid being like compartmentalized and held like hermetically sealed up from the world by his mom, and he's like maturing and growing like in one way, but then in other ways he's being like held back,
Yeah.
and it like physically shows.
Well,
That's
I
good.
think it's better that they kind of went with more subtle differences, physical differences between them. Because when we look at a lot of these type of movies, like the Kids on a Mission movie, because in a lot of ways this is an adventure movie as well as a horror movie.
Totally.
It's like there's a lot of things similar to it about the Goonies or like Monster Squad or something
Stand
like
by
that.
Me.
Stand by Me, and so many of those more
The Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks, those more playful, like just kind of like fun, goofy movies. They always have like this kid's the tough one, and this one's
Oh yeah, they're these very like broadly painted
Right.
archetypes.
and that
like
works
a boy band,
right.
the perfect boy band.
Yeah, it's like he's
The ugly one.
He's
the
this one-
blonde one.
Yeah, this one wears a leather jacket and has sunglasses, and he's
Yeah.
cool, and like that works really well in some of those more simple, goofy movies. But in this movie, that kind of takes some of the same structures as those stories, but tries to plant them into more, even, I mean, I don't say realistic because there's clown monsters and stuff, but if there was clown monsters in the real world type of
Well,
thing.
they're a little more complex.
Exactly, and it's like if they did have more of those obvious, like this is this kid, that is that
Right.
kid, it would kind of take away from
Well,
the credibility and the realism of the
That's
story.
right, and that's the point of their relationship is that they're so. I mean, they're so incredibly entwined with each other, and they like
Physically.
Well, if talking about the book, yeah, we can get into that fucking weird shit. But like
Because there's a child orgy in the book.
Well, it's not an orgy. It's a train.
It was gonna be in the movie.
They have to. It's the Lucky Seven. They have to be together in order to defeat it.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe that plays into them all kind of looking the same.
Sure. And I mean, I'm not, that's not like lost on me because
Right.
obviously I like Elliot because we look similar.
Oh.
So it's just like, that's how you choose your friends in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
People like people who look like them. A sleazy salesman training me once said.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was teaching me sales techniques, and that was one. He's like, dress like the customers.
What? How are
Cut
you
your
supposed
hair
to
like
know
the
that?
customers. Groom your beard like the
What
customers.
job is
Because
this?
people like people who look like them.
Oh my gosh.
And then I went the exact opposite way and like just went wild and was still successful. And
Yeah, I don't think he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds
that's
like
fun.
Egomaniac.
Um,
That's fun.
I was joking.
Oh.
But enough about me.
I think okay, so also I was worried about Pennywise. I was worried about Bill Skarsgård. But
Billy Skateboard.
Billy Skateboard. Holy moly. That was
Phenomenal.
really amazing. And what I like a lot about these horror movies that are coming out recently is that you get to see the monster. Cuz like growing up, the horror movies that came out when I was a kid, like it was all like someone's peeking through the window. Who's that in the darkness? Like you don't get to
Right.
see the monster, but that's what it's all about. And I understand that that's its own fear there, but I want to see it.
Well,
I
now
wanna see
you
what's
have
scaring me.
they're showing the monster so much that you have a giant version of it jumping out of a projector
True.
right at you, or you have it like screaming towards you, or doing like dancing a
Yeah.
jig on a
See,
stage.
See, and that's where I was a little on the fence about that. I think some of it was a little too much, and it wasn't. I wasn't scared in the end.
I think at one point they just said, "Hey, we've got a winner.
Yeah.
Take a look at this.
Yeah.
Get ready, because we're gonna put him on a miniature stage and have him dance for you because we're so fucking excited about this clown."
Yeah, I didn't like all the running at you like.
There was a little too many.
jolty
I
camera.
I did like how he would switch from how quickly he would switch from like doing something
sweet,
goofy
yeah.
to just like I'm like at you, I'm coming for you, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna rip you to shreds.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because the opening sequence is like the big, like iconic scene that everyone knows, the clown in the sewer talking to the little boy. But I'd say Pennywise doesn't really find his footing as a character until later in the movie, because in that first sequence, the sort of voice acting is like all over the map. It's
I like that though.
it's like he was still finding his voice. He wavers from like doing a like weird impression of Tim Curry to finding his own identity as this like terrifying clown.
Well, I think also though it's when he uses a different throughout the movie. He uses different voices in different situations. And when he first sees Georgie, he uses more of a goofy, playful voice, and then starts getting creepier and like, it's like he's like okay, I gotta get enough of this kid's trust to lure him into the sewer, but I also have to have him be afraid at the same time.
And I
you
liked his silly, like giggly, like clown voice. I thought that was the creepiest aspect of the character. And I thought the low sort of guttural like switch was also effective. But then there was also the like, and it really is only in that first scene that he's sort of like doing the Tim Curry impression, and it's like very like sloppy and kind of like hard to understand, and I don't know, something about it just didn't work for me. But then once you get past that, the rest of the movie, everything is really like dialed in.
Yeah, I think for me, Skarsgård's performance really worked, 95% of the time. And I think that some big shoes to fill in the shadows of Tim Curry's
Clown
performance.
shoes.
Clown shoes, yeah. No pun intended,
Those are big shoes.
but intended. It's like I think his performance is so iconic. It's impossible not to go into the movie and thinking about that before you see him. But ultimately, not very long after the movie started rolling, I was not thinking or comparing it to Tim Curry's performance anymore, and it was definitely standing on its own. I do wish there had been a little bit more, like you talked about the jump scares and stuff, and I did like how he would do the switch from being goofy and sweet to like I'm literally running at you to eat you.
Yeah.
But I could have done with a little bit less a few less jump scares, and I would have liked a little bit more of just like him taunting the kids, and I felt like whenever he saw the kids right now, he was trying to get them, and in the original, in the miniseries, there was more times where he's like, okay, well, I'll be back for you. I'll see you later.
Yeah, it was psychological mind games.
It was like it was like cat and mouse. He was having not just he just didn't want to kill them. He was having so much fun tormenting them that he wanted to make it last as long as it could as well. And he would even risk them getting away, if he could have that thrill of the taunt. So I wish there had been a little bit more of that.
Yeah, the nightmare imagery was really the strength of the movie. Like, I remember in the theater all around me, people were reacting strongly to the jump scares and Pennywise getting in your face and rushing the camera. But for me personally, the best stuff was like when he comes out of the fridge and like untangles himself and like unwinds, and when the eyeballs kind of move from the side into the center of the frame, and even the like specific nightmares that the kids have, like Mike's nightmare outside the butcher shop, and then Beverly's nightmare in the bathroom, was just off the chart.
Great.
See,
Great.
I agree. Did I cut you off?
No, I stopped.
Okay. That's just up here. If the monster or demon or whatever of it grabs your like biggest fear, so it's Mike's parents watching his parents
Yeah, trapped
die,
inside the burning building.
Bill and Georgie, Richie and clowns. I didn't understand like what's Ben's. He read a book and got scared by it, and then that's what gets him. Because he was reading the history book about the Kitchener Ironworks
Right.
exploding,
Well, I think
and
it
then
was
he's chased by a headless boy.
I think it was
like,
just in that moment because like in that moment when he was in the library and that was he was like he got scared. He's like, oh look this here's all these pictures of these
Okay, that
deformed
makes sense.
kids. So it was in that and he was kind of also just
Oh, I
discovering
just figured it out.
he was just discovering the history of Derry.
Because I was,
You know.
yeah, and then I was gonna ask like, okay, Beverly cut her hair, it fell down the drain, and then it grabs her from the drain, like she's afraid of her hair. But then I just thought about it, like, do you? I already asked Elliot this, but do you think in this movie her dad raped her?
100%.
Okay,
I think that was.
that's the exact reaction I've gotten
Yeah.
from everybody.
Yeah.
But and that's why she cut her hair off because that's what makes her a girl, his girl, and that's what attacked her.
Right.
Okay, I just worked it out in my
Definitely.
mind.
Yeah.
It's creepy. See this? I feel like this got way more psychological on the kids than the book or the miniseries did.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I didn't feel a connection between George and Bill until this movie. Like, it
Well-
just feels way more thought out. I guess.
In the miniseries, the like what scares you. That's why it's in such superficial level. It's like I saw a werewolf movie,
Right.
So there's a werewolf coming after
Right.
me.
It's very like
you know?
pure sort of like
You know.
kid fears.
You know, it's not. It's it doesn't really tap into their
Yeah, and
deepest, darkest. You know.
and like while like in the book, I guess a lot of the kids had like their lives weren't that great, but in the movie, like they made the string through the kids, like they didn't have the greatest family.
Yeah,
lives.
tragedy was what joined them together.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was a lot more cohesive and well thought out.
Absolutely. One thing I thought was really kind of cool about this movie, and it was just like the general tone and style because obviously the movie takes place in the 80s, but was made now. And what's really cool about it is it feels totally in place then and now. It doesn't feel like a throwback, but it totally feels like I was kind of trying to think of another movie to compare it to, and what came to my mind was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is obviously like this movie made in the style of a 40s adventures movie, and it has all the tropes of those, but it still totally feels like an 80s movie as well. And this movie takes place in the 80s and feels very much late 80s. It feels very much of that time, but still feels like a current movie at the same time. It doesn't feel like it's like I said, a throwback or too much winking and be like, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's moments obviously,
Right.
but it's not in
But the
an over
moments
the
make sense in their like everyday lives.
exactly within the
Like
context.
Richie loves Mortal Kombat because it's a new video
Right.
game.
But it's not
Street
like
Fighter.
Shit.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That was actually kind of like not a hallmark of that time. That was kind of a deep cut type reference because most people don't know the
Street
original
Fighter.
Street Fighter. They know Street Fighter 2, which came out in like 1990 or 91, something like that, and was popular in arcades. But the original Street Fighter wasn't that. They could have actually picked a better game than that, but whatever,
or
man.
maybe they
Well,
picked the
well,
perfect
Whatever,
game.
man. Who cares? That's a tiny nitpick because this movie fucking ruled.
That's true. Okay, well, you said nitpick. What didn't you like about the movie, Keith?
Oh, I mean, I had a few nitpicks like that, but this is all good stuff. Man, that was fucking awesome. What a good movie. Oh, I'd say one of my biggest gripes, actually, that I eventually came to terms with was the wisecracking nonsense of Richie. Because I get that he's like the comedian, but a lot of his jokes and comments were like really antagonistic and kind of
Well, it's his defense mechanism.
overbearing. I totally get it, but
Yeah.
like a lot of them were out of nowhere and just like it's like he had nothing else to bring to the table, and he was almost written like an American Pie movie.
Yeah.
So it just got tiresome for me at a point, and they also kept interjecting those jokes in scary or tense moments to offer like some levity. but a lot of times, like, I thought it was detracting. Like, they could have just let the tension, like, do its thing versus, like, trying to get that stupid laugh.
There was a couple moments I felt like that about where he was like making jokes in the tense moments, particularly at the end where like after it falls down the well or whatever, and they think they've defeated it, and he goes like, "Well, I know when I'm writing what I did on my summer
Yeah,
vacation."
that one was eventually, see, yeah, it's just
that
they
didn't work.
ran out of steam.
But what I really did like, so in contrast to that, in most of the tense moments though, I liked how much the kids were freaking the fuck out.
Yeah,
you know,
that
like,
was really.
They were screaming, terrified. And
It
so
almost
many,
was like ad libbed.
yeah,
too.
in so many of these horror movies, you know, like when people, particularly when it's children in horror movies, should be just like, what the fuck's happening? They're just like way too much on the ball, you know, like they're just like, oh what, oh no, like, you know, they're not losing their shit. And these kids, I liked how much kids lost their shit in this.
I think, like, I feel like this is just gonna annoy you how much I keep talking about the book, but Richie was pulled back 99% in the movie from the book.
Dang.
Like, he was fucking annoying and like hard to like.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Personally, his impressions were like racist and awful and like just not what you like. It's just, why is this
There's nothing redeeming about him.
He's a redeeming, sweet person. You like him, but his shtick was like a little over the top. And then it makes you think like, okay, well, there's these subtle differences between each character, like, but everyone has their personality. Beverly's tough. Bill's the leader. Mike, you know, is like the last person to join that creates the bond. Ben's the smart one. Eddie's the warrior, stands clean, and then Richie's the joker, the clown, the guy that just wants everything to be easygoing. So, I mean, when you're adapting something from a book, you can tweak those characters a little bit, but the fact that they kept him trash mouth, they kept him the jokester to lighten the mood, I think also gives situations more tension. Like when they're in the like square or park or whatever, and Stan is talking about how he keeps seeing this woman, and Richie's like, oh, is she hot? And he's like, no, she's not hot. Like this is real. This is happening. We have to talk about this. Like, I feel like his joke made the situation more serious. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I actually liked that scene because I was right there with him. I was like, shut up, Richie.
Right.
This is serious.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and it's, you know, a big theme of the story is how these kids work together and how they've like love each other and care about each other and play off of each other, and they're young children facing something that you have like you probably would never be prepared for even if you were an adult. So they're forced to grow up before they're ready to grow up, and for Richie being such a jokester, they have to put it into like the beep beep Richie, which they don't say in the movie, except only Pennywise says it once, but they tell him to shut up. They're just like, shut up, Richie. They're having to like push him into this place of, you have to grow up, you have to take this seriously. I feel like I just went on a whole rant.
Yeah, you're really enabling his destructive behavior.
But I think
So Richie rant.
I think it's needed. I guess because it makes it you have to.
I just think they could have picked their shots a little bit better, and more deliberately.
I loved pretty much all of them. Like, and I could watch a show that's just Richie and Eddie, like, because I liked the old couple relationship that they had. I mean, on the other side, it's like Eddie could be annoying too. He's like worried about everything. He's like, you know, taking all these pills, telling people they can't touch this or they can't touch that because they'll get AIDS. Like,
oh yeah. Wow.
That's accurate.
That was perfect. That was the most incredible piece of like, I'm regurgitating some nonsense that an adult told me.
Yeah. Well, Francis, what didn't you like about it, or was there anything you didn't like about it?
I mean, coming at it from reading the book is hard to answer that question without, you know, just saying, well, this was in the book and this wasn't.
Well,
in the
yeah,
movie.
but just based on what
what I feel like they kind of brushed aside was the story of the bullies. Like, I wish we could have spent a little bit more time with that, because this is a story where this group of kids are being chased on both sides, like, by their peers and then by this monster, and then also, like, some of them are just ignored and looked over by their parents, so they're, like, getting all this shit from every side. And while the story of, like, the parents isn't really that interesting, I kind of wish we could have seen Henry's descent into madness a little bit more. I do like that they included the scene of him murdering his father, because that was, like, the first step where, like, holy shit, this guy, like, he's possessed, he's insane, like, that, those two things together is just gonna create, he was, like, the conduit of Pennywise.
Yeah.
To torture and torment even more, but he was defeated too quickly. I thought he should have been there a little bit more.
I was only half listening to that, but it sounded like you're describing the plot of Freddy versus Jason.
I was. That's what we were
Henry
talking about, right?
Bowers is Jason, Pennywise is Freddy, and
No, Francis thought we've literally just been talking about.
That's what I've been talking about.
That's
this whole
the movie
time.
she watched. Was Freddy.
Oh,
versus-
is that why you keep saying place your bets?
Yes.
Got it.
Let's see. I feel like I guess I kind of mentioned most of the things that I had small gripes with. One thing that I thought could have been improved upon, and I guess we probably should have said at the beginning of this, or this episode is spoiler heavy, but at the end in the final confrontation with it, one thing I think the miniseries did a little bit better was, remember, if you recall, in the miniseries they had, like, Richie brought his mom's silver earrings to use the slingshot.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, it's silver, we can kill it, right? And that was such a great scene. That was such a great idea, because once again, it's playing off your fears and your beliefs, and if you believe this will hurt it, it will hurt it.
Yeah,
you
If
know?
it's a werewolf, then you can kill it with silver.
Right.
Exactly, you know, and that was a great symbolic weapon when they went in to go fight it. And then in this one, they don't have that, and they're pretty much just, like, hitting it with pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, you know, bricks and rocks.
Baseball bat.
And it doesn't have that same power. Now, ultimately, they still defeat it the same way by you discovering it's like, if we're not afraid of you, you can't hurt us. But it didn't have that symbolic trigger that the silver earrings had. So I mean that's a pretty minor thing. I think most of my gripes with it are pretty minor. You know.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite scenes, when they're fighting it, and as each member of the Losers Club squares off with
it turns to what it's afraid of.
It's transforming into those different
And
fears.
there's a nod in the book to the book in that scene too, because in the book Ben first sees it as the mummy, and then it turns into the mummy when it's grabbing Ben in the movie. I liked that part too.
Yeah, it's weird how stuff like that really has such a big impact. Like, it's because it's obviously very thoughtful, and it like it makes you excited. Like that's the kind of stuff I get. I don't care about, like, Pennywise, like, flying out of something and jolting me. Like, I care about, like, exciting images, like,
And the tiny things. that
yeah,
you catch.
exactly. Even though I'm not particularly afraid of clowns for obvious reasons,
'Cause you're
but
currently
like
dressed
one.
as a clown
right,
now.
I am a clown in training. But the scene with was it Richie's nightmare that was clowns?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, him fearing the very thing that he would become, amazing. That's poetry.
Like, he said he's afraid of clowns, but
But
no, you're actually afraid of dying.
He is a clown, but yeah, he's afraid to
Right.
die.
Yeah, he's
Um,
afraid of, like, facing his own fear.
his mortality. Yeah,
That's why he's always joking around.
sure.
I know that feeling.
But his nightmare with the clown dolls was fantastic, and the like icing on the cake was that small child-sized casket with the poster inside of him missing.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredible.
That was
Found.
great. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It was really well done. Well, okay, so let's see. We've gone over what we like, don't like. We've talked about Keith being dressed as a clown. Final thoughts on it? How would you rate it? Rank it in the Stephen King.
Man, I could talk about this movie for probably hours.
Yeah,
I have a
same.
whole entire list of the entire climax.
No,
Like,
I'm thinking about like you're like wrapping it up, but like wait, I haven't talked about half of what I want to talk about.
yeah, the column of floating people. That was one thing that was never
that was perfect.
Okay,
never
that- yes.
addressed in the original.
It was like why they.
Why are
He
they
kept
floating?
talking about things floating in reference to balloons, but then like the payoff was in this, the like column of
Right.
floating kids just like hypnotized and like
Well,
dead.
that
And
was-
seeing like it's home. I mean, obviously he goes down that tunnel. What's down there, we don't know yet. But like that's where he's like taking all of his victims,
Right,
and he's
his
feeding
lair.
off of that. I mean, I don't know why.
Well, that was something that drove me nuts in the original one. Is where like that in the original miniseries, Georgie goes, "Oh, do the balloons float?" And he goes, "Yeah, they float. You all float down here."
Yeah.
And then he keeps saying that to everyone else as if they're in on the joke.
Right, if they know what he's talking
No one
about.
else was there. It's not. It's an inside joke that he's using to torment the kids, but they don't know what it means.
I wonder if it was like an effects limitation at the time.
Well, is that part in the book with the
No.
floating children?
Oh.
I think that maybe was just one of Stephen King's like dumb little. Cause he has all those little like sayings and stuffs in his writing.
Yeah.
You know, that he like gets hung up on, and this was their way of explaining something that just didn't like narratively make a lot of sense. You know,
Yeah.
so that was an improvement on the source material. I think right there.
Yeah, it was really creepy too.
Yeah, and then also the look of Pennywise when he's about to feed, how the like rows and rows, like
His
hundreds of
eye,
rows
like-
of teeth,
Yeah.
and then the deadlights showing up in the
Yeah.
back
Oh,
of his throat.
great!
Finally, the
Oh
deadlights.
my god, like done well.
Yeah,
Instead of just like throwing a flashlight through across
yeah,
the
just
screen.
like.
Yeah.
And yeah, because in the miniseries when Henry sees the deadlights, his hair turns white, and it's just so hokey. But this is better. Like
Well-
the way they did it, I thought it was more realistic. I guess.
Yeah.
If that makes any
I mean,
sense.
if it was like the 50s or something, then the hair turning white would have been totally fine. But yeah, we're modern people from the future. We don't go
We
in for
are.
that bullshit.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to talk about this because I just want to compare it to the book.
that's fine.
because I just noticed
that's-
all the nuggets, and I guess you call them Easter eggs.
That's part of the great perspective is that you have read the book.
Well, but
Yeah, it's the only reason you're here.
I know. Well, Elliot needed a ride.
It's true.
The mentions of the turtle were like little nuggets that.
Oh yeah,
I
dropping the
enjoyed.
Lego turtle.
And like when they're swimming in the quarry, and they're like, "Oh, there's a turtle down there." But like to anybody else seeing that scene, they might be like, "What the fuck? Who? Like, oh, it's just a turtle. Like they're just swimming and hanging out." But it's like a little nod to the book, which yeah, and book.
We get
That's
it.
all
You
I
like
talk-
to read.
Nerd, you fucking nerd.
Actually, this last month I listened to it. Like I had to revisit it, and I listened to it on audiobook, read by Steven Weber, and it was fucking awful. That guy sucks.
Really? I
Oh
feel
my
like Steven
God.
Weber would be okay at an audiobook
Nope.
reading.
Nope.
Huh.
No. Elliot listened to some of it too. It's so bad. It made me think that I hated every Stephen King book. I
Wow.
ever
Like
read.
you'd also already read this, and you were like questioning if
I was
that-
like, do I like it? And then I stopped listening, and I like finished reading it, and it was.
But it was a book.
amazing.
Yeah, it was a book you'd read before, and you're like, oh, this sucks now. Like I never liked this book.
Yeah,
I was
Steven
an idiot.
Weber. Thanks a lot, Steven Weber.
Man, shout out to Steven
Heck.
Weber. Speaking of hatred, did you notice that the actor who played Eddie looked an awful lot like Whit Hertford, your old nemesis?
Yeah, I did notice that, and I also noticed that on the marquee was Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child,
The best one.
also starring
Whit
Whit
Hertford.
Hertford. That little fucking piece of shit.
Coincidence?
Whit, if you're listening to this,
He's not.
He might be.
no,
He's
he's
not.
blocked me on all forms of social media, so
Yeah, but he still probably is like,
he probably checks up on me sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you got to say about this, huh?
Wow. Yeah, you told him.
No, I just really want to know what he has to say.
Yeah, come on,
Okay,
Whit,
yeah.
speak up.
You know?
Let's hear
It's
what.
very
he always-
professional's
he-
view.
He always just blocks me on the internet. He never actually confronts me.
Yeah, it'd be really nice
Like,
to hear you
am
guys
I,
hash it
am
out.
I your Pennywise?
That's not his face.
No, I
Is-
think that you're his turtle,
Oh.
and he's Pennywise.
Oh.
So you're just enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah, naturally occurring enemies.
Yeah, it was a pretty good movie. It was very good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much. I would even see it again in the theater.
I would probably see it again in the theater as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would rank this very high in the realm of Stephen King adaptations. You know, and normally I often I'm not that quick to put something in a ranking, even no matter how much I like it at the beginning, just because like, well, I liked it right now, but I watch it 6 months from now, I may lose some of the thrill. And I really don't feel like that's going to happen with this. I think this is really going to. I think it will just grow with me because after leaving the theater the first time, I liked it more and more. The more I thought about it, I enjoyed watching it the second time. You know, 2 days later, even more than the first time. There was no loss and thrill of, oh, I haven't seen this before. I was only gaining on picking up all the other things about it. So I think this will be one that just grows and grows and grows for me. So I'd put it right at the top of Stephen King adaptations.
This movie redefines the children in danger subgenre.
100%.
And it does it in right out of the gate in the opening scene where Georgie gets his arm ripped off right in front of us in the foreground, and then crawls around with a bleeding stump and then gets sucked into the sewer.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, this movie's scary.
Never have I been so shocked at a violent act against a child since Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Have you seen this movie?
I did see part of it.
They slap a face hugger onto a small child, and then they've got aliens popping out of the kid.
Ew.
Incredible. They threatened us with that in the 80s, and it didn't fly.
That's
and then
true.
everyone thought about it again in the 90s, and it didn't happen. But here, in 2017...
Like, let's harm kids.
It's on.
That actor was awesome, too. I'm always amazed when there's
Georgie
really
actor?
young kids who can, like, actually... Like,
all the children
portray
now
real
actors
emotion.
really...
Well, yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
calling him out because he's the youngest.
Gotcha.
He's really great.
Oh, speaking of age gaps, what the hell is going on with Ben and Beverly? Because he looks like he's about 8 years younger than she is.
so-
Yes.
I actually thought this too, and I was like watching.
She looked like she was in at her first year in college.
Yeah.
What?
Yes, I agreed. I was like, yeah, he looks like he's 8. She looks like she's 20,
Yeah.
and I was like, so I actually looked it up. She's 13. He's like 12 or 13.
Wow,
they're the
that's
same.
wild.
Yeah.
He's such a baby face. It reminded me.
Yeah, he's a baby face. I don't think she looks like she's 20.
It reminded me of
You guys are weird. Don't make an excuse for this.
the romantic tension in Blank Check between
Oh, dude, that's
the rich kid
disgusting.
and the FBI agent.
That was fucking weird. Why would they do that?
I have no idea. Why would a grown woman kiss a small child? Even no matter how disgustingly rich he is. Or charming
Well,
and
it makes you
charismatic.
think, I guess.
And pure of heart.
I did feel uncomfortable when Ben kissed Beverly, though, just because I was like, ugh, what? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, it was weird. Because it was a very, like...
Closed-lipped, he just went, like, touch.
It was like, I don't know. I felt like it was a solid, like... He kind of knew what he was doing, but it's like...
I disagree.
As such a young-looking child, like, for him to think, well, if I make this romantic gesture, it's going to cure her catatonic state. Or her, like... her being trapped in the deadlights, that's such a far reach that I can't even wrap my head around it.
I don't know. Maybe we don't give Ben enough credit.
I definitely don't give Ben enough credit.
I really wish that the movie had spent more time building up bonds between the kids.
I see. I
think that the 6 of them got pretty close, but then Mike's there and he's like, hey, I'm here. We're all best friends now.
Well, yeah, and also the kid, Stanley, didn't really seem like... He fit in because he was one of the losers and had problems, but he didn't really seem like super tight. He was ready to abandon ship and throw everybody to the wolves at any point.
When? Oh, like when Pennywise was like...
He
"You guys
kept
can
trying to
leave."
quit. He's like, I don't know,
he didn't
guys.
want to be there at all.
Right, but like...
Here's the thing, man. I definitely, in this situation, I was in this situation, I would have been Stanley. Every time everyone was like, let's go in the sewer, I'd be like, no.
But I think, like, regardless of how, like bonded, like, how good of friends they were, he still was, like, he was still scared. Like, that's
Right.
believable.
I also think that was they did a good job of ingraining that in his personality. He was, while the other ones had, like, their, Bill stuttered and Eddie was hypochondriac, and Richie was afraid of facing the future, under just reality. Stanley was the one who was just most unsure of himself in general.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they showed him, like, he's practicing for his bar mitzvah, and he's
he just does things because people tell him to do
right,
it.
and but he also feels like he also feels like he's not good at anything. He definitely has the least confidence overall, I feel, out of any of them. And I think that kind of plays into why he might be the more subdued. And
I didn't get that.
I did, yeah.
The ironic part is that he proved everyone right. Like, how stupid of an idea it was to pursue this sort of war with Pennywise when in the sewer he gets his face sucked off by the lady from the painting.
Yeah.
And he's screaming about how they left him alone and they abandoned him, because they did.
That was good.
Yeah. Also, here's a goofy trivia tidbit. The lady from the painting is the supernatural creature from Mama.
Yeah.
That's I didn't.
Well, and he based, I think, doesn't Andy, was it Muschietti?
Yeah.
He based those off of like Modigliani paintings.
Oh.
Because they're so creepy and fucking freaky that I think like that was something that scared him.
Yeah.
And then he used that in Mama, and then I think it's probably something that he's going to use again in another movie.
That's really interesting.
It is truly frightening.
Yeah, I didn't really get it at first. Like, I felt like I was supposed to understand the significance of this, and I kept looking for clues, but I wasn't finding anything.
Like, why that painting?
Yeah, and I didn't really, like, story-wise, I didn't really connect the dots, but then reading after the movie, I sort of figured out based on his...
I really like that about him, that, like, it's not just, like, demons or ghosts. It's like, this is something that is in real life, that you've seen a creepy painting or like a weird depiction.
Yeah, and it sticks with you.
But then when it comes to life, fuck that. That's so terrifying. That is so terrifying.
Well, more to me, creepier than when it actually came to life. Oh, yeah. To me, creepier than when it actually came to life was when. To me, creepier than when it actually came to life was when the painting fell off the wall, and then he picks the painting up and hang it up, and the image is gone.
Yeah.
And but then you hear the flute playing. She was playing a flute, and
just
he's like,
behind
fuck.
her. That was the creepiest part there. Whereas like, well, because what would you do, like, if where before you actually saw the woman, you'd be like, where did she go? What is happening? Well, that moment of.
And then the way she drops the flute is just like, she didn't slam it down. She didn't let it go. It just like slips out of her creepy long hands. Oh, it's so creepy.
It's interesting too, because it could go either way. It's, oh my gosh, where did she go? Is she behind me? Or it's, what is happening to my sanity? Like, can I trust my own mind? Like, am I completely losing it? Like, was there ever anything on this painting?
Right, and that's a key part of his character, where he's the last one to believe in.
Yeah, because he's a natural skeptic.
Right, was natural skeptic, but I think that plays into his confidence as well, where it's just like, this can't be real. I have to be crazy.
Yeah,
he didn't have the confidence to even believe what he was seeing.
Right. Oh, and that like ties back into his story of not really believing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like his religion, but just sort of being subjected to that because of his position as his father's son.
Right, precisely.
Wow, what a good movie. Mm-hmm. Some really profound shit.
Mm-hmm.
But also tentacles and slime and...
It covers all my bases.
Gross business, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. We all can agree this was...
It took me a while to warm up. Like,
really?
I was sitting there kind of like... Well, there's some, like, good moments here, but, like, I don't know. Like, I was on the fence for about 30 minutes, and then it really took off.
Once Pennywise opened its mouth and, like the arm came out of the gutter, then I was like, oh, shit. And then I started, like, screaming in the movie, and people were annoyed, and I was like, I thought this was a scary movie.
Mm-hmm.
You can scream, right?
Oh, one more thing that I wanted to bring up that probably went unnoticed by a lot of people. When Ben is...
I noticed that.
When Ben is getting cut by Henry Bowers in the stomach, and he sort of kicks off and falls down that hill, That stunt fall is a masterwork.
It's good.
That thing was absolutely brutal, and I don't know if they got a child stunt worker to do it or
Probably not.
what, but
It was actually just an outtake from the fall
Absolutely
from Black
wild.
Sheep, Chris
Yeah.
Farley.
Okay. That was pretty good.
I
With
was
the fall,
very-
the fall in Black Sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fall
Black Sheep, man, what a classic.
I think there should be like a documentary about just that fall, called "The Fall of the Black Sheep."
That sounds like a great movie.
It does.
All right, let's get you like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter page going, and
I
we'll
don't
get
wanna
this
do
shit
any of the
made.
work.
Come on, Francis.
I didn't really think about that fall, but now that you mention it,
There's so many moments like that, like little kind of subtle things that may not have like contributed overall to the story, but like I appreciated because it looks like they went the extra mile. Even when Ben gets his stomach slashed open after they go into the creepy house for the first time, and he's standing outside, and Richie points out that he's leaking Hamburger Helper. That was probably one of my favorite moments because not only is that a funny joke, but it's also like the slashes on his stomach were no joke. They were
Yeah.
like really well done and
Yeah,
cool
they're
looking,
gnarly.
and the whole tone of that scene with the mom doesn't care about what happened to these kids, and it's probably made up, and they're probably just roughhousing in this stupid old house, and she's completely ignoring this kid that needs his stomach sewn up like right away.
Do you think that was product placement and Hamburger Helper paid them to say that his stomach looks like Hamburger Helper?
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna get the Ben themed box art soon.
I hope so.
Where it's like it's the glove character just like dancing around in front of those open
but
wounds.
it's as a monster, the like werewolf.
It's
hand.
that's Penny. That's been Pennywise's glove the
Right,
entire
the entire
time.
time, and
the
it's got a
entire
red
time.
clown nose.
We didn't realize it.
Yeah,
God.
We're through the looking glass here, people.
we are. Who's responsible for Hamburger Helper? We're taking this one straight to the top.
I want hamburger helper.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
What about tuna helper?
Ew.
No.
That okay. On that note, guys, would you recommend? Yes.
Oh, 100%. Go see it, you losers.
Would you recommend?
Yes.
I would also recommend it 100%.
I feel like you should read the book too.
Everyone should probably do everything.
Yeah, well, let's see if it's available on
But don't
audiobook.
listen to it. Don't listen to it. It's so bad.
Yeah, don't go down that route.
Isn't it wild how they released the remake of It 27 years after the original
What?
Wait, no, is
movie was made?
No, that's true.
It's 100% true. It was part of the deal. And then probably one of the best episodes of the Trash Heap with a great movie is coming out on the anniversary of our first episode 1 year ago in September.
Look at that, guys.
Wow.
Look at that.
I can't hardly keep my pants on.
Oh,
Is that a thing?
sure,
Oh.
sure.
These
most-
kinds of things make me want to do a little dance.
I think most of our listeners don't wear pants that regularly.
I certainly hope not.
So, but anyway, but yeah, thank you guys for the handful of you guys who have listened to us for the past year. Certainly means a lot to us, right, Keith?
Yeah, we wouldn't do it without you.
Yeah.
If you think for a second I like just sitting around listening to the sound of my own voice or the sound of someone with a very similar voice to my own, you got another thing coming. And thanks to people like Francis who come on the show and add a different voice to the mix, because otherwise I would go crazy.
100%. Yeah, if there's anything though in this coming year, because we're probably going to keep doing this
Maybe even more frequently.
more frequently, that you want us to talk about, maybe we will if you tell us.
You want to come on the show?
How much money you got?
Yeah, you.
Oh,
Not you, Francis. I'm
okay.
talking about the
Yeah, the proverbial you.
the world at large. If
Yeah.
you want to come on the show, talk to us, hit us up, let's hear about it. If you want to recommend a movie,
Do it.
let us know.
So yeah, until next time then. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed the last year of episodes. And we'll see you guys later.
For now, the dumpster is closed.
I know I used to work with a guy who used to be a meth addict, and he told me he read the book in one night.
This song was playing on the radio
Exactly.
in Norman Jean's car.
it's like, who the fuck bites into a fortune cookie? Do you eat it that way? has sex with Beverly.